I am 61 years old. I am sitting now on the porch of my house in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. And for the first time in 4 years, I feel like I can breathe freely. Next to me, my grandson Ethan is playing. He is already 5, and he finally knows who Grandpa is. Not that strange man you can't talk about, not Dad's mean father, just Grandpa, who loves him more than life itself. My son Michael is sitting on the steps watching Ethan kick a ball around the yard. There is still some awkwardness between us. 4 years of estrangement don't get erased in a couple of months. But we are working on it every day. And Christine, the woman who almost destroyed our family, is no longer in our lives. And I did everything to make her pay for what she did, not through the law. The law is powerless against people like her. But I found my own way. This story is long, very long, but I need to tell it from beginning to end. Maybe someone will recognize themselves in it. Maybe it will help someone not make my mistakes. Or the opposite. Maybe it will help someone find the strength to do what I did. Forgive me for any errors. English is my native language, but I am not a writer, just a father who went through hell and came back. For you to understand what Christine destroyed, I must first tell you what we had. I was born and raised in Ohio. My father worked at the General Motors plant in Lordstown. My mother was a nurse at the local hospital. An ordinary middle-class family, not rich, not poor. We were taught to work hard, keep our word, and take care of our own. After high school, I joined the Army. 4 years, including Operation Desert Storm. I came back in one piece, which was already lucky. On veterans' benefits, I got an education, became an electrical engineer. Not the most glamorous profession, but stable and well paid. In 1991, I met Linda. God, Linda. Even now, 23 years after her death, I cannot talk about her without a lump in my throat. She worked as an elementary school teacher, a small red-haired woman with freckles and a laugh that filled any room. We met at a mutual friend's wedding. I asked her to dance, stepped on her foot twice, and she still gave me her phone number. We got married a year later, bought a small house in the suburbs of Columbus, 3 bedrooms, small yard, good school district. We thought we would have 3 or 4 kids. Life had other plans. After 2 miscarriages and endless doctor visits, Linda finally got pregnant with Michael. The pregnancy was difficult. She spent the last 3 months practically in bed. But on March 15, 1994, our son was born. Healthy, loud, with my dark hair and her green eyes. We couldn't have more children. Doctors said another pregnancy could be dangerous for Linda. We accepted it. We had Michael, and he was everything we needed. The next 8 years were the best of my life. I got promoted at work. We paid off the house. Michael grew up to be a smart and kind boy. Linda adored him, read to him every night, took him to all his sports activities, helped with homework. I worked a lot, sometimes too much, but tried to be there when it mattered. And then, in October 2002, Linda went for a routine doctor's checkup. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctor said she had 3 to 6 months. She lived 4. I won't describe those months in detail. I can't. I will only say that Linda thought about Michael and me until her last day. She recorded video messages for him for every birthday until he turned 25. She made a list of tips for me: how to cook his favorite meals, how to talk to him about girls, how to help him choose a college. "You'll manage," she told me 2 days before she died. You're stronger than you think. Just love him. That's enough. Linda died on February 14th, 2003, Valentine's Day. She was 34. Michael was 8. The following years, I survived. There is no other word for it. I hired a nanny at first, Margaret, an elderly woman from our church. She helped with Michael after school until I got home from work, made dinner, supervised homework. I am still grateful to her. Without her, I wouldn't have managed. But the main work I did myself. I learned to cook, not like a chef, but enough so Michael wouldn't live on hot dogs. I went to parent-teacher meetings, drove him to baseball practice, checked his homework in the evenings. I watched Linda's videos with him on every birthday. We would sit together, cry, and then go eat cake. Michael grew up to be a good kid, really. He was kind, always helped the younger kids at school. Smart, graduated with a 3.8 GPA. Reliable. If he promised something, he did it. He reminded me of Linda in that way. She never broke promises either. After high school, Michael went to Ohio State University, business administration. I was proud. His mother would have been even prouder. He lived on campus the first 2 years, then rented an apartment with friends. He came home on weekends, called at least every other day. We were close as a father and adult son can be. After college, he got a job at a marketing company in Columbus, got his own apartment, started building a career. I slowly began thinking about retirement. I was 55. The house had been paid off for years. My savings would let me quit in a few years. Life was good, peaceful. And then Christine appeared. It was October 2019. Michael was 25. I was 57. My son called me on a Wednesday evening. I remember because on Wednesdays I usually watched football and didn't like being interrupted. But for Michael, I always answered. "Dad," he said, and I immediately heard something new in his voice. Excitement? Nervousness? "I want to introduce you to someone this Saturday. Can you come for dinner?" Of course I could. I asked who she was because it was obviously a girl. Why else would he be so nervous? "Her name is Christine. We've been dating for 2 months. She's special, Dad. I really want you to get to know her." 2 months. Looking back now, I understand that was the first warning sign. Michael never rushed to introduce me to girlfriends. Before this, there had only been 2 serious relationships, and both he introduced to me after at least 6 months. But at the time, I chalked it up to her really being special. Special, that's for sure. On Saturday, I arrived at Michael's apartment around 6 in the evening. I brought a bottle of wine, a decent one, not from the supermarket. I wanted to make a good impression on my son's girlfriend. Wanted her to see that we were a normal, respectable family. She opened the door. Christine Morgan, as she introduced herself then, was a beautiful woman, 28 years old, medium height, slim, with chestnut hair and big brown eyes, dressed tastefully, not flashy, but expensive, wide smile, perfectly white teeth. "Mr. Hammond," she hugged me before I could even say hello. "I'm so happy to finally meet you. Michael has told me so much about you." It was a little much, too warm for a first meeting, but I chalked it up to nerves. She wanted to please her boyfriend's father. That's normal. I hugged her back, said something polite. Michael stood behind her with a smile I hadn't seen on him in a long time, a smile of being in love, of happiness. My heart squeezed, in a good way, from joy for my son. Dinner went strangely. Now, knowing what I know, I can describe exactly what was wrong. At the time, I just felt some discomfort, but couldn't explain it. Christine talked a lot, a lot. She talked about herself, about her job. She was a realtor. About her family, parents in Cincinnati, father a doctor, mother a homemaker, about her life plans. She talked about Michael, how wonderful he was, smart, kind, how lucky she was to meet him. She talked about me, how much good she had heard about me, how she respected men who raised children alone. But here's what was strange. She didn't ask questions, not a single real question. She didn't ask about my job, my interests, about Linda. She just held forth, as if the conversation was her solo performance and Michael and I were the audience. And one more thing. Every time Michael tried to add something or tell his own story, she gently, almost imperceptibly, took back the initiative. "Oh, honey, you told me that story. It's so sweet." And she would switch to something of her own, not letting him finish. Michael didn't notice, or notice but didn't think it mattered. He looked at her with lovesick eyes and smiled. By the end of the evening I had a strange thought. I had spent 3 hours with this woman and still didn't know anything real about her. She had talked a lot, but said nothing. I knew her profession, her parents' names, the name of the university she graduated from, but I didn't know what she was like, what she loved, what she feared, what she dreamed of. She was like a presentation, beautiful, polished, professional presentation, but behind the slides there was nothing. When I was leaving, Christine hugged me again. "Mr. Hammond, I want to tell you something. I know Michael lost his mom very young, and I know you raised him alone. You did an amazing job. He's the best man I've ever met. I promise you I will take care of him." Beautiful words, the right words, but in her eyes, when she said this, I saw something cold for a split second, as if she took off a mask and immediately put it back on. I told myself I was imagining it. The next few weeks I tried to convince myself that I liked Christine. Objectively, she was a good match for Michael. Educated, successful in her work, beautiful. She was attentive to him. At least, that's how it looked from the outside. Michael seemed happy, happier than I had ever seen him. Maybe, I thought, the problem is me. Maybe I'm just too used to being the only important person in my son's life. Maybe I'm just jealous. I shared my doubts with Eddie, Edward Kowalski, my best friend since the Army. We went through Desert Storm together. Then he was my best man at my wedding to Linda, then Michael's godfather. Eddie was the only person I could talk to about absolutely anything. "I don't like her," I told him over a beer. Eddie, a big bald guy with tattoos on both arms, looked at me skeptically. "Tom, you've known her one evening." "I know, but something's wrong." "What exactly?" And I couldn't explain, because she hadn't done anything wrong. She was polite, sweet, said all the right things. I just had a feeling, intuition, and you can't present intuition in a conversation. "Give her a chance," Eddie advised. "The kid's in love. If you start telling him now that you don't like her, you'll only push him away." He was right, and that was my first big mistake. I stayed silent. 3 months later, in January 2020, Michael called me with news. "Dad, I proposed to Christine. She said yes. We're getting married." 3 months. They had been together 5 months total, and he had already proposed. I tried to hide my shock. Said, "Congratulations." Said, "I'm happy for you." Said, "When's the wedding?" Michael said, "Summer. They don't want to wait long." Christine was already looking at venues. After the call, I sat on the couch, for about 20 minutes staring at the wall. 5 months. Linda and I dated for a year before I proposed, and that was considered fast. I called Eddie. 5 months, he said. Damn, that's fast. Too fast? Pause. Look, Tom, I understand how you feel, but people are different. Maybe they just know they've found each other. It happens. And if not? And if not, he's a grown man, 25 years old. It's his decision. I should say something. Say what? That you don't like his fiancée, but you can't explain why? Tom, that won't work. You'll just fight with him. I knew Eddie was right, but I couldn't just stay silent. This is my son, my only son. A week later, I invited Michael to lunch. Without Christine, I said I wanted to talk to him, man to man. We met at our favorite place, a small barbecue joint we'd been going to since he was a teenager. Ordered ribs, beer, talked about his work, about football, about the weather. Normal father-son conversation. Then I gathered my courage. Michael, I said, I want to talk to you about Christine. I saw him tense up. Instantly. What about her? Son, I chose my words very carefully. I'm glad you're happy, really glad, but aren't you rushing things? You've known each other 5 months. Michael set down his beer. His face changed, became closed, guarded. Dad, when you met Mom, you knew right away she was the one. You told me that yourself. Yes, but we dated for a year before. Times have changed. People have changed. I know what I feel, Dad. I love her. I don't doubt that you love her. I hesitated. Michael, what do you know about her past? About her previous relationships? His eyes narrowed. She told me everything. She had one serious boyfriend in college. They broke up because he treated her badly. It took her time to trust men again, and now she trusts me. And you, what, are you checking into her past? No, I'm just asking. You just don't like her. From the first meeting. That was a blow, because he was right, and I couldn't deny it. That's not true, I tried. I just want to make sure that I'm what, not making a mistake? Dad, he leaned toward me across the table. I'm not a child. I'm 25. I know what I'm doing, and I want my father, the only parent I have, to support me, instead of interrogating me about my fiancée. I saw the hurt in his eyes, real hurt, and I got scared. You're right, I said. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm just worried about you. You're my only son. His face softened a little. I know, Dad, but you don't need to worry. Christine is a wonderful woman. When you get to know her better, you'll understand. I nodded, tried to smile. We finished our ribs, talked a bit more, about wedding dates, about plans. I said I would pay for everything. Tradition is that the bride's father pays, of course, but her parents had already paid for her older sister's wedding, so I wanted to help. Michael hugged me as we said goodbye. Thanks, Dad. This means a lot to me. I watched him get in his car and drive away, and I knew with absolute certainty that I had just made my second big mistake. I backed down too easily. I let his hurt make me go silent. But what could I do? I had no evidence, just intuition. And intuition against love, that's a losing battle. The wedding was set for June 2020, then COVID came, and everything got pushed. In the end, they got married in October, a small ceremony, just close family and friends, 50 people maximum. I met Christine's parents a month before the wedding, Dr. William Morgan and his wife, Patricia. He was a retired cardiac surgeon. She really had been a homemaker all her life. Rich people. Their house in Cincinnati was about 3 times the size of mine. They were strange. Not bad, just strange, very polite, very cold. No warmth. Patricia barely spoke, just smiled an empty smile and nodded. William talked a lot, but mostly about himself, about his career, his achievements, his connections. They barely mentioned Christine, and she barely mentioned them. I noticed she was tense the whole evening, barely looked at her mother, and hardly spoke to her father. Later, I found out why. But that's later. At the wedding, Christine was the perfect bride. White dress, tears of joy, beautiful vows. I watched my son put a ring on her finger and tried to believe everything would be fine. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe she really loved him. Maybe they would be happy. After the ceremony, there was a reception. I gave a toast, talked about Linda, about how she dreamed of seeing this day, about how proud she would be of Michael. Christine cried, beautifully, neatly, without smudging her makeup. I thought, are those real tears or not? At the end of the evening, a woman came up to me, a friend of Christine's, I gathered, red-haired, freckled, a little drunk. "You're Michael's father?" she asked. "Tom?" "Yes." She looked at me strangely, with something like sympathy. "Good luck to you," she said, and left. I didn't understand then what she meant. I understood later. The first months after the wedding, everything was normal. Michael seemed happy. They moved to a bigger apartment, 2 bedrooms, in a nice neighborhood. Christine threw herself into decorating. I came to visit once every week or 2. Christine was a gracious hostess, cooked dinners, set a beautiful table. We talked about work, about politics, about life. She still talked a lot and listened little, but I was getting used to it. Then the changes began. The first warning sign was small. I called Michael on Saturday morning, as usual. "Hey, Dad, listen, I can't talk right now. Christine and I are going to brunch with her friends." "Okay, no problem. Call me later?" "Yeah, sure." He didn't call, not that day, not the next. 3 days later, I called him myself. He apologized, said he got busy. A couple weeks later, I invited him fishing. He and I went fishing every fall. It was our tradition since he was a teenager. "Dad, this weekend won't work. Christine has some work event. She wants me to go with her." "Maybe next weekend?" "Maybe. I'll check." We didn't go fishing that year, or the next. Then came the money. It was March 2021, 5 months after the wedding. Michael called me. His voice was strange, nervous. "Dad, I need help. Can you lend me some money?" My heart sank. Michael never asked for money. Since he started working, he had never asked me for a single dollar. "Of course, son. How much?" Pause. $5,000. $5,000. That was a lot. Not catastrophically a lot. I could afford it, but a lot. "Can I ask what for?" Another pause. Longer. "Christine, she needs a new car for work. Her old one broke down. We've been saving for a down payment, but we're a little short." Something about that explanation sounded wrong. But this is my son. If he needs help, I'll help. "No problem. I'll transfer it today." "Thanks, Dad. I'll pay it back in a couple months, I promise." He didn't pay it back. Not in a couple months. Not in 6 months. I didn't remind him. Didn't want to make him uncomfortable. And 3 months later, he asked again. $3,000, Dad? This is the last time, I swear. Christine had some unexpected work expenses. I gave it. Then again. And again. By the end of 2021, I had lent them, or given, honestly, because there was no more talk of paying back, almost $20,000. In December that year, I found out where the money was going. It happened by accident. I was at the mall buying Christmas presents, and I saw Christine. She was coming out of a jewelry store with a bag in her hands. Not a small bag, several bags, from expensive stores. She didn't notice me. I stood behind a column and watched her get in her car, a new car, the one I had supposedly given a down payment on. Only I remembered them talking about a Toyota. This was a Lexus, jewelry, expensive stores. On my money? I didn't know for sure. Maybe her real estate business had finally taken off. Maybe she got a bonus. Maybe her parents helped. But something inside me, that same intuition I had been ignoring for 2 years, said, "That's your money." At Christmas, I came to visit them. Brought presents, a watch for Michael, a cashmere scarf for Christine, expensive, but not excessive. Christine opened my gift, smiled, thanked me, and then I saw what she gave Michael, a Rolex. A real Rolex, not a fake. I know watches. This was a model that cost at least $15,000. $15,000! While 3 months ago they were asking me for money for unexpected expenses. I didn't say anything, sat there, smiled, ate turkey. But inside me, something broke. I understood I was being used. My son or his wife was using me like an ATM. After dinner, when Christine went to the kitchen, I pulled Michael aside. "Son, where did you get the money for a Rolex? I thought you had financial difficulties." His face changed, became defensive. Christine saved up for it specially. It was a surprise. She wanted to do something nice for me. "Michael, that watch cost $15,000. Where did she get that kind of money if you were asking me for $3,000 in September?" "Dad," his voice went cold, "I'm not going to report to you about our finances. That's our business." "It's my business, too, because I gave you almost $20,000 this year." I hadn't planned to say that. It just came out. Michael went pale, then red. "You said it wasn't a problem. You said you wanted to help." "I did want to help, but not so that—" At that moment, Christine walked into the room. "Is everything all right?" she asked. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were cold. She had heard. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing," Michael said quickly. "Dad was just leaving." I looked at him, at my son, and I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. He was on her side, not mine. "Yes," I said, "I was just leaving." I took my coat and left. Didn't say goodbye to Christine, didn't hug my son, just left and got in my car. That was the last Christmas I spent with him. After that Christmas, I didn't call Michael for 3 days. It was the longest time without contact with my son in his entire adult life. I sat at home, staring out the window at the snowy yard, replaying that conversation over and over in my head. $20,000, the Rolex, the Lexus, instead of a Toyota, the jewelry stores. I tried to find an explanation that wouldn't make me a fool. Maybe Christine really did earn that money herself. Realtors sometimes get big commissions. I knew that. Maybe she sold an expensive house and got a bonus. Maybe her parents gave her money for Christmas. But then, why did they ask me? Why did Michael call me with that nervous voice asking for $5,000 for a down payment on a car if they could afford a Lexus? Either they lied to me then or they're lying now. There was no third option. On the 4th day, Michael called, "Dad." His voice was tense, but not angry, more like tired. "We need to talk." "Agreed. Can you come over tomorrow for dinner?" I wanted to say no. Wanted to say, You come to me, alone, without her. But something in his voice stopped me. Some note I couldn't identify. Okay, what time? 7. I arrived at exactly 7, brought a bottle of wine. Out of habit. I stood in front of their door feeling like I was going to a job interview or a trial. Michael opened the door. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven. This wasn't like him. Michael always took care of himself, always looked put together. "Hey, Dad, come in." The apartment was spotlessly clean, as always. Christine sat on the couch, hands folded in her lap. When I came in, she stood and smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Hammond, good to see you." She wasn't calling me Tom anymore. I noticed that. After the wedding, she had switched to Tom, and now it was back to Mr. Hammond. Distance. "Christine." We sat down at the table. Christine served dinner. Baked chicken, vegetables, rice, all beautiful, all proper. We ate in silence for the first few minutes. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, Michael cleared his throat. "Dad, about Christmas." "Yes?" He looked at Christine. She gave an almost imperceptible nod, as if giving him permission to speak. That movement, that little nod, told me more than any words. "I understand that you were upset about the watch." "Not about the watch, Michael. About the fact that you were asking me for money, talking about financial difficulties, and then I see a $15,000 Rolex." "That was different money," Christine cut in, her voice level, calm. "The money you gave us went toward the car and covering some bills. The watch I bought with my own savings. I have a separate account where I put aside money from each commission. Michael didn't know about it. It was supposed to be a surprise." She spoke convincingly, very convincingly, looked me straight in the eye, unblinking. "And the Lexus?" I asked. Michael said Toyota. We changed our minds. The Lexus was used with a good discount. In the end, it wasn't much more expensive. Logical, reasonable. I had no proof she was lying, but I knew. I just knew. "All right," I said. "Let's say." Michael exhaled with relief. Christine smiled, warmer this time. "Mr. Hammond," she said, "I understand that you worry about Michael. That's normal. You're his father. But I want you to know, I love your son. I will never do anything that harms him or your family. We're a team." Beautiful words. The right words. I nodded and continued eating. The rest of the evening passed in polite conversation. We talked about the weather, about work, about plans for the new year, as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't accused her of lying and she hadn't lied to my face. When I was leaving, Michael came out to walk me to my car. "Dad," he said quietly, "I know what you think, but you're wrong about Christine. She's a good person. Just give her time. Get to know her better." I looked at my son, at his tired face, the dark circles under his eyes. He had lost weight, I noticed. And when was the last time he laughed? I couldn't remember. "Are you happy, Michael?" He blinked. The question caught him off guard. "What? Yes, of course I'm happy. Why do you ask?" "Just asking." He hugged me. Quick, awkward. "I'm fine, Dad, really. Don't worry." I got in my car and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing on the porch watching me go, a small figure in the porch light. My son, my boy. I didn't know then that this was the last normal conversation between us for a long time. January 2022 passed relatively quietly. I called Michael once a week, as usual. He answered, but the conversations got shorter. 5 minutes instead of 20. "Everything's fine, Dad. Work, lots going on. We'll talk later. I invited him to lunch. He was busy. Offered to come visit them. Not a good time right now, maybe next week. Next week never came. I tried not to panic. Young couples often withdraw into their own world the first years of marriage. That's normal. They need space. I remembered how Linda and I barely talked to anyone the first year. We had enough of each other. But with Linda, it was different. She never pushed my family away. She loved my parents while they were alive. She wanted me to spend time with friends. Christine seemed to want something different. In February, I learned news that changed everything. Michael called me on a Saturday morning. His voice was different, excited, but in a good way. "Dad, I have news, big news." My heart stopped. "Christine is pregnant. You're going to be a grandfather." I sat down, literally. My legs buckled, and I sank onto the couch. Grandfather? I was going to be a grandfather. "Dad, you there?" Yes, I'm here. Michael, that's wonderful. My voice trembled. "Congratulations, son. Congratulations to you both." "Thanks, Dad. We found out yesterday. It's early still. 8 weeks. But the doctor says everything looks good." I wiped my eyes. I wasn't ashamed of tears. Linda always said real men aren't afraid to cry from happiness. "Is it a boy or a girl?" "We don't know yet. We'll find out in a couple months, but, Dad," he hesitated, "if it's a boy, we want to name him Thomas. After you." I couldn't speak. I just couldn't. "Dad, I'm here," I managed. "Thank you, Michael. That means a lot to me." "You deserve it, Dad. You're the best father anyone could wish for. I want my son to know that." After the call, I sat on the couch for another hour, looking at Linda's photo on the mantel. "Did you hear?" I asked her. "We're going to be grandparents." Of course she didn't answer, but I felt like she was smiling. The next few months were strange. On one hand, joy. I was going to be a grandfather. For the first time in a long time, I had a goal, something to look forward to. I started looking at baby things in stores, bought a book about how to be a good grandfather, even started setting up one of the rooms in my house, in case my grandson would be staying with me. On the other hand, anxiety, because along with the pregnancy news came new rules. I noticed the first one when I called a few days after the news to offer my help. "Dad, that's really sweet," Michael said. "But Christine, she needs rest right now. The doctor said the first trimester is the most important time. She doesn't want a lot of visitors." "I understand. Maybe I could just come for tea. I won't stay long." Pause. "Let's wait a few weeks, until she feels better." A few weeks turned into a month, then 2. I called. They answered, but briefly. I offered to come. There was always a reason why now wasn't good. Doctors, tiredness, morning sickness, work. I understood that pregnancy is hard. I remembered how Linda suffered when she was carrying Michael. But Linda never forbade me from seeing my parents. Even when she was on bed rest the last few months, they came every week. This was something different. In May, I learned it was going to be a boy. Michael sent a text. Didn't even call, just a text. "It's a boy, Ethan Thomas Hammond." Ethan, a beautiful name. "Thomas, after me." I called back immediately. "Congratulations, son. That's wonderful news." "Thanks, Dad. Listen, I can't talk right now. We're at the doctor's." Of course. Call me later." He didn't call. I waited a day, 2, 3. Then I called myself. "Dad, sorry, I got caught up. Christine had some problems. Nothing serious. Doctors say everything's fine, but she's on bed rest now." "My God, is she okay?" Maybe I could come help around the house. No, no, it's all fine. Her mom came from Cincinnati. She's helping. Her mom, Patricia, that same cold woman who barely spoke, she could come and help, but I couldn't. All right, I said, trying to hide my hurt. If you need anything, call, any time. Of course, Dad, thanks. Ethan was born on September 17th, 2022. I found out 6 hours after the birth. 6 hours. Michael sent a text with a photo. Ethan is here. 7 lbs, 11 OZ, 20.5 inches. Everyone is healthy. I looked at the photo of my grandson, small, wrinkled, eyes closed, and I cried, from happiness and from pain. 6 hours. He waited 6 hours to tell me. I called immediately. Michael, congratulations. How are you all? How's Christine? Everyone's fine, Dad. She's tired, but everything went well. Can I come? I want to see my grandson. Pause. A long pause. Dad, right now isn't the best time. Christine is very tired. Doctors say she needs rest. Maybe in a few days, when they're discharged home. A few days. My grandson was born, and I had to wait a few days. Okay, I said. Okay, call me when you're home. He called a week later. Dad, can you come Saturday for a couple hours? A couple hours? A time limit? Of course. What time? 2. And Dad, he hesitated. Don't take this the wrong way, but Christine asked. She's very sensitive right now. After giving birth, hormones. Try not to say anything that might upset her. I didn't understand. What do you mean? Well, just no criticism. No advice about how to raise a child. She's read a lot of books. She has her own approach. She doesn't want anyone interfering. I, the grandfather, was interfering. Michael, I'm not going to teach you how to raise a child. I just want to see my grandson. I know, Dad. Just be careful what you say. Okay? Okay. On Saturday, I arrived at their place exactly at 2. Brought presents, a stuffed toy for Ethan, flowers for Christine, a bottle of good wine for Michael. I rehearsed in the car what I would say. Nothing critical. Nothing that could be taken as advice. Only positive. Christine opened the door. She looked different. Had lost weight after giving birth, but not the way new mothers usually do. She was pale, with dark circles under her eyes, but still dressed impeccably, white blouse and beige pants, makeup in place, smile in place. Mr. Hammond, come in. The apartment was immaculately clean. No baby things scattered on the floor, no bottles on the table, as if there were no newborn here. Ethan was sleeping in the nursery. Christine led me there, a small room painted blue, with a white crib and a mobile hanging over it. I looked at my grandson and couldn't breathe. He was beautiful, small, with chubby cheeks, with dark hair, like Michael as a baby, like me. He was sleeping, and his tiny fists were clenched near his face. Can I hold him? Christine tensed. I saw it, a slight movement of her shoulders, pressed lips. He just fell asleep. Better not to wake him. I'll be careful, just to hold him for a minute. She looked at me. In her eyes was something I couldn't read. All right, but careful. I picked him up. My grandson, my little Ethan. He was so light, so warm. He stirred in his sleep, smacked his lips, and went still again. Hello, little one, I whispered. I'm your grandpa. I'm so happy to see you. I stood there for about 5 minutes, just holding him and looking, memorizing every feature of his face, every hair on his head. Then Christine gently but firmly took him from me. It's time for his feeding. I'll nurse him in the bedroom." She left and closed the door. I stood in the nursery, not knowing what to do. I spent the next 2 hours in the living room with Michael. Christine never came out, feeding, then putting him down, then something else. Michael apologized for her. "She's really tired, Dad. Ethan doesn't sleep at night. She's on her feet around the clock. And you? Are you helping?" "Of course. But she wants to do everything herself. Says that's the right way, that the baby needs his mother around constantly." I wanted to say that a baby needs both parents, that Linda and I split duties when he was born, that it's normal to ask for help. But I remembered his words, "Don't say anything that might upset her." So I stayed silent. At exactly 4 o'clock, 2 hours after I arrived, Michael looked at his watch. "Dad, we need to... Ethan has his evening bath soon. Christine wants to keep to the schedule." I was being politely shown the door. "Of course," I said. "Of course, I understand." I stood up, put on my coat. Michael walked me to the door. "Thanks for coming, Dad. I'll call." "When can I come again?" He hesitated. "I need to ask Christine. She has a schedule for visits so as not to overwhelm the baby." A schedule of visits for the grandfather. "All right," I said. "Call me when you know." He called 2 weeks later. The next visit was scheduled for Sunday from 3 to 5, and so began my scheduled visits. Once every 2 or 3 weeks, 2 hours maximum. Never without warning. Never when Christine isn't in the mood, or Ethan is fussy, or we have plans. I tried not to complain, told myself this was normal, that young parents need space, that Christine was just a very responsible mother who wanted the best for her child. But with each visit, I noticed more and more things that troubled me. Michael was changing. He didn't laugh anymore. I hadn't heard his laugh in months. He didn't joke, didn't tell funny stories from work, didn't discuss football or politics with me. Our conversations had become empty, formal. He had lost weight, a lot. His clothes hung on him. The dark circles under his eyes had become permanent, and he constantly looked to Christine. Before saying anything, he looked at her, as if asking permission. Once I arrived a little earlier than scheduled, 15 minutes. I rang the doorbell. Michael opened. "Dad, you're early." "Traffic was lighter than I thought. Let me in?" He hesitated, looked back. "Wait a second." He closed the door in my face. I stood on the porch for 3 minutes before he opened again. "Come in. Sorry, Christine was feeding Ethan." I went in. The apartment looked as usual, spotlessly clean. But I noticed there was a laptop on the living room table, and next to it, a cup of coffee. Christine sat at the table typing something. She didn't even turn around when I came in. "Christine," Michael said, "Dad's here." She raised her head, smiled. "Mr. Hammond, you're early. Not good to see you, not come in, just a statement of fact. You're early." "Sorry," I said, though I didn't understand what I was apologizing for. "Traffic." She nodded and went back to her laptop. I spent the next 2 hours playing with Ethan on the living room floor while Christine worked at the table. Michael sat in the armchair watching us. Now and then, Christine would look up and say something like, "Don't shake him so hard," or "That toy isn't appropriate for his age," or "It's time for him to rest." By the end of the visit, I felt like I had spent 2 hours taking an exam, and failed it. By spring 2023, my visits had become even less frequent, once a month, if I was lucky, sometimes once every 6 weeks, always with at least a week's notice, always with confirmation the day before, always with a time limit. I kept a calendar, marked the days when I saw my grandson, looked at those rare marks and tried to convince myself everything was normal. It wasn't normal. I remembered how my parents had been with Linda and me after Michael was born. They came every week, sometimes twice a week. Mom helped with cooking. Dad fussed with the baby while Linda and I rested. They were part of our lives, not scheduled guests. I wanted to be that kind of grandfather. Wanted to take Ethan for weekends, take him to the park, teach him to ride a bike, tell him about his grandma Linda. Wanted to be there. Instead, I was a person who came once a month for 2 hours and sat on the couch under supervision. In April, I tried to talk to Michael. I called him at work for the first time in years. I knew he couldn't talk freely at home. She was always there. Dad, everything okay? Yes, everything's fine. Just wanted to talk. Do you have a minute? 5 minutes. I have a meeting soon. 5 minutes. For his father, 5 minutes. Michael, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Silence on the other end. Are you happy? Long pause. What kind of question is that, Dad? Of course I'm happy. I have a wife, a son, a good job. What more could I want? You don't look happy. You've lost weight. You don't laugh anymore. You've become different, Michael. I'm just tired. Ethan doesn't sleep at night. Work is hard. It's normal for young parents. I remember what you were like before the wedding. You were a different person. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Dad, his voice changed, became colder. I know what you're trying to say. You think Christine. I'm not thinking anything. I'm just worried about you. You don't need to worry about me. I'm an adult. I make my own decisions. I know, but Dad, I have to go. Meeting. He hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand staring at the screen. My son had just hung up in the middle of a conversation. That had never happened before, never. 3 days later, Christine called me. It was the first time. In all the years of their relationship, she had never called me herself, always through Michael. Mr. Hammond, her voice was level, calm. We need to talk. I'm listening. Michael told me about your conversation, about what you said to him. I tensed. I just asked if he was happy. You told him he had changed after the wedding, that he was a different person before me. She spoke slowly, pronouncing each word clearly, like a teacher explaining something to a slow child. I said I was worried about him. That's true? Mr. Hammond, she sighed, theatrically, artificially. I understand that it's hard for you to accept the changes in your son's life. You're used to being the most important person to him. But he's married now. He has his own family. His priorities have changed. That's normal. I'm not. Let me finish, she interrupted. Your constant attempts to turn Michael against me, that's unhealthy. For him, for our marriage, for Ethan. Michael was very upset after your conversation. He didn't sleep all night. I didn't know what to say. She was turning everything upside down. I asked my son if he was happy, and now I was to blame for him not sleeping? Christine, I'm not trying to turn him against you. I'm just... Mr. Hammond, her voice became harder. I'm not calling you to argue. I'm calling to ask you, please stop. Stop asking Michael provocative questions. Stop trying to interfere in our relationship. Just be a good father and grandfather. Come for visits. Play with Ethan. Talk with us. But don't do this. Provocative questions. I asked my son if he was happy. That's a provocation. I heard you, I said. Can I talk to Michael? He's busy right now. Tell him I called." "I will." She hung up. I stood in the middle of the kitchen with the phone in my hand and felt something inside me clench. It was fear, real, primal fear. I was losing my son, slowly, gradually, but inexorably. She was taking him from me. After that conversation, everything got worse. Michael stopped answering my calls. Not always. Sometimes he picked up. But the conversations became even shorter, even more formal. "Yes, Dad, everything's fine. No, we can't right now. Maybe next week. I'll call you back." He didn't call back. My visits to Ethan shrank to once every 2 months, then even less often. Every time there was a reason, Ethan is sick, Christine is stressed, they have plans, it's not convenient, not now, later. I missed my grandson's first birthday. Here's how it happened. I called 3 weeks before the date to find out the plans. Wanted to buy a present, wanted to be there. "Dad, we're celebrating with just a small group. Just us and Christine's parents." A small group. That didn't include me. "Michael," I tried to speak calmly, "this is my grandson's first birthday. I want to be there." Silence. "I'll talk to Christine." He called back 2 days later. "Dad, sorry. Christine says there'll be too many people. Ethan will get overstimulated. Maybe we can celebrate separately. You come the next week, bring a present." Separately. Separately from the real celebration. "Okay," I said. What else could I say? "Okay, Michael." I came a week after the birthday. Brought a big teddy bear and a developmental toy. The saleswoman at the store helped me choose. Ethan was a year old. He was already walking, unsteadily, holding on to furniture, but walking. He had dark curly hair and green eyes, Linda's eyes. Every time I looked at him, I saw her. I gave him the bear. He grabbed it and laughed, loudly, ringingly, a child's laugh. Christine stood in the doorway watching. "Mr. Hammond," she said, "we need to talk about the visit schedule." Visit schedule, as if I were a social worker or a distant relative. "I'm listening." "Ethan is entering an important developmental phase. The doctor says he needs stability, predictability. Too many different people around. That's stress for him." I was too many different people. I was his grandfather. "What are you suggesting?" "I think," she smiled, that empty smile of hers, "that visits once every 2 months is optimal, and better if they're shorter. An hour, hour and a half, maximum. Once every 2 months, an hour and a half." I looked at Michael. He sat on the couch, staring at the floor. "Michael," I said, "do you agree with this?" He raised his eyes. In them was something I couldn't identify. Shame, fear, helplessness. "Dad, Christine's right. Ethan needs stability. It's temporary, until he's older." Temporary. A lie, and we both knew it. I stood up, looked at my grandson playing with the bear on the floor, looked at my son who couldn't look me in the eye. "All right," I said, "I understand." And I left. Summer 2023 was the worst time of my life. Worse than after Linda's death. At least then I had Michael. Now I had no one. My calls went more and more often unanswered. Texts, unanswered. I invited Michael to lunch. He was busy. Offered to come over, not convenient. Asked for at least photos of Ethan. "Yes, Dad, I'll send them later." Later never came. In July, I called Michael 12 times over 2 weeks. He answered once. "Dad, I'm at work. Can't talk." "Michael, I just want to know how you all are. How's Ethan?" "Everything's fine. I'll call you back." He didn't call back. In August, I took a desperate step. I showed up at their place without warning. Just got in my car and went. I needed to see my grandson, needed to talk to my son, really talk, not on the phone, not under supervision. I rang the doorbell. Christine opened. Her face changed when she saw me. For a split second, but I noticed. Anger. Real, undisguised anger. Then the mask returned. "Mr. Hammond, you're here without warning." "I know, sorry. I just wanted to see Ethan and Michael." "Michael's at work." "Then can I see my grandson?" She didn't move from the doorway, stood there blocking the entrance. "Ethan is sleeping." "I can wait." Pause, a long pause. "Mr. Hammond," her voice was icy, "we agreed on a visit schedule. You can't just show up whenever you feel like it." "He's my grandson, Christine, my only grandson. And this is our home, our rules." We stood looking at each other for the first time without masks, without pretense. She wasn't hiding her attitude toward me. I wasn't hiding my understanding of what she was doing. "I want to see my grandson," I said, "and my son. You have no right to forbid me." "I'm not forbidding. I'm asking you to respect our boundaries." "Boundaries? You've cut me off from my family." She stepped back. On her face appeared an expression of suffering, hurt, acting, I realized later. "I see you're upset. I understand. But I'm not going to have a conversation with you when you're in this state. Please leave. Michael will contact you later." And she closed the door. Right in my face. I stood on the porch, staring at the closed door. My son's house, the house where my grandson lived, and I was standing outside like a stranger. Michael called that same evening. His voice was, I had never heard him like that. "Dad, what did you do?" "What did I do? I came to see my grandson." "You scared Christine. She was crying after you left. She said you were aggressive." "Aggressive? Michael, I was just standing on the doorstep asking to see Ethan." "She said you were yelling." "I wasn't yelling. I raised my voice because she wouldn't let me in the house." Silence. "Dad," his voice got quieter, "I need to protect my family, my wife and son. You understand that? And me? Am I not your family?" Long pause. "Dad, Christine thinks we need a break from communication with you." The ground fell out from under me. "A break?" "Just for a while, until everything calms down." "Michael, no. Please, I'm your father. Dad, I can't right now. Christine is upset. Ethan is fussy. I have to go." "Michael, I'll call you after a while. Just give us space, please." He hung up. I sat on the couch in the dark. I don't remember when I turned off the lights, staring at the phone in my hand. A break from communication with me. She had gotten what she wanted. The break lasted a month, then 2, then 3. I called. No one answered. I texted. No answer. I sent a letter by mail. It came back unopened. On Thanksgiving, I sat alone in an empty house, looking at Michael's picture on the wall. A little boy with Linda's green eyes smiling at the camera. Where was that boy? What had she done to him? On Christmas, I bought presents for Ethan, drove them to Michael's house, left them on the porch, didn't ring, didn't knock, just left them and drove away. Then I saw them the next day in the trash can on the street, unwrapped. I started drinking. Not heavily. I'm not an alcoholic. But a glass of whiskey in the evening turned into 2, then 3. It helped me fall asleep, helped me not think. Eddie noticed. He came to see me in January 2024, just showed up without warning. I opened the door unshaven, in a dirty T-shirt, bottle in hand. "Jesus, Tom," he said, "what's happened to you?" I told him everything, for the first time, everything from the very beginning. About Christine, about the money, about the manipulation, about the isolation, about the break. Eddie listened in silence. Then he took the bottle from me and poured it down the sink. "Tom," he said, "you can't go on like this. You're killing yourself." "What am I supposed to do, Eddie? What the hell am I supposed to do?" He sat across from me. "Listen, I know you're hurting, but you have to pull yourself together. Michael is under her control. That's obvious. But he's not an idiot. Sooner or later he'll understand what's happening. And when that happens, you need to be there, need to be in a condition to help. And if he doesn't understand, people like her always make a mistake, always. You just have to wait. I can't just wait. This is my son, my grandson. You can, and you will, because you have no other choice." Eddie stayed at my place that night. In the morning, he made me shave, take a shower, eat a proper breakfast. Then he left. But his words stayed with me. People like her always make a mistake. I needed to be ready, needed to wait. And when she made her mistake, I would be there. The first ray of light appeared in February 2024, from where I least expected it. I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, thought it was spam. But something made me pick up. Mr. Hammond? Tom Hammond? A woman's voice. Unfamiliar. "Yes, that's me. My name is Rachel Dawson. You don't know me, but I know your daughter-in-law, Christine." I froze. "How do you know me?" "It's a long story. Can we meet? I need to tell you something." We met at a cafe the next day. Rachel turned out to be a woman in her 40s, red-haired with freckles. Something about her seemed familiar, but I couldn't figure out what. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she said. "I understand this is strange." "Tell me about Christine," she sighed. "First of all, I was at their wedding, your son and Christine's. I don't know if you remember me." And then I remembered. The red-haired woman, a little drunk, who came up to me at the end of the evening. "You told me good luck." She nodded. "I didn't know you then, but I knew Christine, and I knew you would need luck." "How do you know her?" Rachel looked out the window. "Christine was married to my brother 10 years ago." For the next hour, she told me a story that made my hair stand on end. Her brother, David Dawson, married Christine in 2012. They were both 22, young, in love, naive. The first year, everything was wonderful. Christine was the perfect wife, attentive, caring, loving. David was happy. Then the changes began. Gradually, imperceptibly, just like with us, Christine began cutting David off from his family. First, fewer visits to his parents. Then, fights with his sister, with Rachel. Then, complete isolation. "She convinced him that we didn't love him," Rachel said, "that we hated her, that we were trying to destroy their marriage. David believed her. He stopped communicating with us completely." How long did this go on? Almost 4 years. 4 years without seeing our brother, without knowing what was happening to him. She fell silent. I could see it was hard for her to continue. What happened next? She cheated on him with his best friend. David found out by accident. He saw messages on her phone. And you know what she did? What? She told him it was his fault, that he'd been a bad husband, that he'd let himself go, stopped taking care of her, that he'd made her seek attention elsewhere. I couldn't believe my ears. And he believed her? At first, yes. He even apologized to her, apologized for her cheating on him. Can you imagine? I could. Unfortunately, I could. But he eventually left her? Rachel shook her head. Not right away. It took another 6 months. and help from a therapist. David was broken. She destroyed his self-esteem, his relationships with family, his faith in himself. It took him 2 years of therapy to recover. Where is he now? Remarried, happy. He has 2 children, but the scars remain. He still sometimes... She didn't finish. Never mind. I sat there trying to process what I'd heard. Why were you at their wedding? At Michael and Christine's wedding? I wasn't invited. I came on my own. I wanted to warn someone, your son or you, but I couldn't. I couldn't find the right words. I just said, good luck, and left. Why are you calling me now, 4 years later? She looked me in the eyes. Because I've heard what's happening. We have mutual acquaintances. I heard that Christine is doing the same thing again with your son. And I thought you needed to know the truth. After my conversation with Rachel, I didn't sleep for 3 nights. Everything she told me kept spinning in my head. David Dawson, 4 years of isolation, infidelity, gaslighting, psychological abuse. This wasn't just a bad wife. This was a pattern, a system. She'd done this before and was doing it again with my son. But Rachel's story alone wasn't enough. I needed facts, evidence, something I could show Michael when the time came. I called Rachel a few days later. I need more information, I said, about Christine, about her past, about everything. What exactly do you want to know? Everything. Where she worked, who she dated, what happened in her life before Michael, any details. Rachel paused. Mr. Hammond, I'll tell you everything I know, but it may not be enough. After divorcing David, she disappeared, moved, changed jobs. We lost track of her. The next thing I heard about her, she was marrying your son. So there's a gap, several years between the divorce from your brother and meeting Michael. Yes, about 5 years. 5 years. What was she doing during those 5 years? Who was she with? Who else did she use? Rachel, I said, I need your help. Over the next few weeks, Rachel and I worked together. She gave me contacts for people who knew Christine in the past, former colleagues, former friends, acquaintances of her family. I called them, introduced myself, sometimes honestly, sometimes not, and asked questions. The picture that emerged was frightening. Christine Morgan, or Christine Dawson, as she was known in her first marriage, had a reputation. Not official, not documented, just people knew. They whispered behind her back. She was always a bit strange, her former colleague from the real estate agency told me. Very nice on the surface, but cold inside. You know those people who say all the right words, but you feel they're not genuine? Yes, I said. I know. She was good at sales, very good. She knew how to convince people, but her colleagues didn't like her. She used people, took their clients, claimed their ideas, always came out clean. Another woman, a former college friend of Christine's, told me a similar story. We were friends freshman year. She was fun, charming, but then I noticed she was lying, constantly, about small things, about big things, about everything. And when I caught her lying, she turned everything around, said I was paranoid, that I was jealous of her, convinced our mutual friends that I was crazy. I lost my entire social circle in 1 semester. Gaslighting, manipulation, lies. This was her signature, her method. But the real breakthrough came when I found Marcus Chen. Marcus was Christine's boyfriend between her 2 marriages. During that same 5-year period, no one knew anything about. I found him through social media. It took a long time, tedious work. But I found him. He didn't agree to meet me right away. I sent him a message, explained the situation. He didn't respond. I wrote again. Silence. The third time I wrote, "Please, she's doing the same thing to my son. I need your help." He responded 2 days later. Where and when? We met in Cleveland. He lived there after moving from Columbus. Marcus turned out to be a tall Asian man in his mid-30s with a tired face and wary eyes. "Before we begin," he said, "I want to clarify something. I'm not proud of that period of my life. I made many mistakes, but I'm not a bad person. I was a victim." "I understand." "No." He shook his head. "You don't understand. Yet. But you will." And he began to tell his story. Marcus met Christine in 2015, a year after her divorce from David. She was beautiful, charming, attentive. She listened to him, took interest in his life, his work, his dreams. He fell in love quickly, like Michael, like David before him. "The first 6 months were perfect," Marcus said. "She was the best girlfriend I'd ever met. Caring, tender, understanding. I thought I'd found the one. And then?" He smirked bitterly without humor. "Then she met my family." The story was familiar, too familiar. Christine took a dislike to his mother, or rather, decided that his mother disliked her. Conflicts began. Small at first, then bigger. Marcus found himself caught between two fires, trying to please both, unable to please either. "She convinced me that my mom was controlling my life, that she was toxic, that I needed to set boundaries. I believed her. He fell silent. "I told my mom we needed a break from talking. She cried, and I stood there watching. Christine was beside me, holding my hand, being supportive." "How long did you go without talking to your mother?" "Almost 2 years." 2 years, just like me. "What happened next?" Marcus looked out the window. "Money, always money." Christine started asking for money about a year into the relationship. At first, small amounts. Pay for dinner, help with rent, lend her money for car repairs. "I didn't mind," Marcus said. "I had a good income. I thought it was normal helping the woman you love." But the amounts grew. $5,000 for some professional development course. $10,000 for a down payment on an apartment, their shared apartment as she put it. $15,000 for... He couldn't even remember what. Something important. Something urgent. Over 2 years, I gave her more than $80,000, Marcus said. Everything I had. Savings I'd built up over 10 years. Everything. I remembered my $20,000, the Rolex, the Lexus, the jewelry stores. Did she pay any of it back? No, of course not. Every time I brought up money, she said I was greedy, that real love doesn't count money, that I was treating her like a prostitute who needed to be paid. Manipulation, twisted logic. The victim becomes the aggressor. The aggressor becomes the victim. "How did you break up?" Marcus was silent for a long time. "She left me," he finally said, "when the money ran out, when there was nothing more to take. She said I had changed, that I'd become angry and controlling, that she no longer felt safe around me." "And you believed her?" "No. By that point, no. I had started to understand what was happening. But it didn't matter. She left and took everything she could carry. Things I'd bought, furniture from our apartment, even my dog." "Your dog?" "Golden Retriever, Max. I got him before I even met her. She said Max was more attached to her, that it would be cruel to separate them." I didn't know what to say. The story was so similar to mine, to David's story, to the stories of everyone she'd been with. "Marcus," I said, "have you ever thought about getting revenge on her?" He looked at me for a long moment. "Every day, for the first 2 years, every day. But I didn't know how. I had no evidence, no money for lawyers, and honestly, no strength. She took everything from me, including my will to fight. And now?" He smiled for the first time during our conversation. The smile was not kind. "Now you're here, Mr. Hammond, and it seems to me you don't intend to just sit and wait." "No," I said, "I don't." After meeting with Marcus, I had enough information to understand the scale of the problem, but information wasn't enough to do anything about it. Stories from exes are just words. Michael wouldn't believe them. He'd say these people were lying, that they were bitter, that they were responsible for their own problems. Christine had already laid the groundwork. She'd long ago convinced him that anyone who criticized her was just jealous or hateful. I needed facts, documents, something irrefutable. And I had an idea where to look for them. I hired a private investigator. His name was Frank Moreno A., former Columbus police officer who'd retired and opened his own agency. Eddie knew him from some old cases, recommended him as a reliable and discreet man. "What do you need?" Frank asked at our first meeting. "Everything on Christine Morgan. Born Christine Elizabeth Morgan, was married to David Dawson from 2012 to 2014. Currently married to my son, Michael Hammond." Frank took notes. "What exactly are you hoping to find?" "Financial records, if possible. Court cases, everything related to her past relationships, and—" I hesitated. "I want to know what she's doing now, who she's meeting, where she goes." Frank raised an eyebrow. "You think she's cheating on your son?" "She cheated on her first husband, and possibly her second, boyfriend after her first husband. It's her pattern." "Got it. This is going to cost money. Surveillance isn't cheap." "Money isn't a problem." That was true. After I stopped giving money to Michael and Christine, my bank account had begun to recover. Besides, I'd been saving for retirement for many years. If I needed to spend part of my savings to get my son back, I'd spend it. Frank worked for 2 months. Every week, he sent me reports. At first boring, nothing interesting. Christine drove to work, to stores, to the gym, met with friends, took Ethan to daycare, the ordinary life of an ordinary woman. But then, strange things started appearing. "She regularly drives to Dayton," Frank told me over the phone. "Once a week, sometimes twice. She tells her husband their work meetings with clients." "And actually?" "Actually, she spends time at a hotel, the Marriott near the airport, 3 to 4 hours, then drives back." My heart started beating faster. "Is she alone there?" "No, with a man. I haven't identified him yet, but I'm working on it." 2 weeks later, Frank sent me photographs. Christine near the hotel with a man. They weren't hugging, weren't kissing, at least not in these shots. But it was obvious this wasn't a work meeting. Standing too close, gestures too intimate. The man was older than her, 50, maybe 55. Graying but fit. Expensive suit. Expensive watch. Obviously wealthy. "His name is Richard Campbell," Frank reported. "Businessman from Dayton. Owns a chain of car dealerships. Married, 3 children. Net worth roughly estimated around $20 million. $20 million, of course. Christine had found her next victim, someone richer than my son." "How long has this been going on?" "Based on hotel records, at least 4 months, possibly longer. They meet regularly, Wednesdays and Fridays." 4 months. While my son was working, caring for his child, believing he had a happy marriage. His wife was meeting another man at a cheap hotel. No, not cheap. The Marriott is a decent hotel. Richard probably pays. I need more, I told Frank. Photos where they're more explicit, so there's no doubt. Understood. That will take time. How much? A couple of weeks, maybe a month. Do it. While Frank worked on the photos, I dug in another direction. Finances. With help from Rachel and her brother David, I obtained some information about Christine and David's divorce. It turned out that during the divorce, she tried to get half his assets, despite the marriage lasting only 2 years, and her not working for most of that time. David hired a good lawyer and managed to protect his assets. But the process itself was ugly. Christine accused him of emotional abuse, control, financial misconduct. All lies, as it later turned out. Did she try to do the same with Marcus? I asked Rachel. They weren't married, so there was no formal divorce. But she threatened to sue him for emotional damages, demanded compensation. And he paid $10,000 to make her go away. Blackmail. It was blackmail. I was beginning to understand the scheme. Christine would find a man preferably well off, preferably kind and trusting, charm him, isolate him from family and friends, drain money from him, and when the source dried up or a better target appeared, she'd leave, taking everything she could. And if the victim resisted, she'd threaten lawsuits, accusations, scandal. My son was another victim, but judging by Richard Campbell, his time would soon be up. This was both good and bad. Good because she'd leave his life. Bad because she'd try to take everything with her, money, the house, and possibly Ethan. I couldn't let that happen. In April 2024, Frank sent me new photographs. Christine and Richard Campbell. In a hotel room, Frank had somehow gotten access to a hallway camera. They enter together, embracing. They exit. 3 hours later, she's fixing her hair, he's buttoning his shirt. And then photographs through a window. I don't know how Frank got them, and I don't want to know, but they showed enough to leave no doubt. Is this enough? Frank asked. Yes, I said. That's enough. Now I had a weapon, but I didn't know how to use it. Show the photos to Michael? He might not believe them. He'd say it was Photoshop, that Frank fabricated evidence on my orders. Christine had already laid the groundwork. She'd long ago convinced him that I was the enemy, that I was capable of anything to destroy their marriage. Show the photos to Richard Campbell's wife? That would destroy his family, but would it help me? Would it help Michael? I thought about this day after day, made plans, discarded them, made new ones, and then fate made its move. In May 2024, Michael called me, for the first time in 9 months. Dad, his voice was strange, quiet, broken. Dad, I need help. I almost dropped the phone. 9 months. 9 months of silence, ignoring, rejection, and now he was calling on his own, asking for help. Michael, what happened? Are you okay? Is Ethan okay? Ethan's okay. He's at Grandma's, at Christine's mom's. His voice was unlike anything I'd ever heard from him before, empty, as if all life had been drained from him. Michael, what's going on? A long silence. I could hear his breathing, heavy, uneven. Was he crying? Was my son crying? Dad, can I come over now? I need to be somewhere, not home. Of course, son. Come over. I'm waiting. He hung up. I sat in my chair staring at the phone. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What happened? Did she leave? Did he find out? Something with Ethan? The next 40 minutes, the time it takes to drive from his house to mine, were the longest of my life. When I opened the door, I barely recognized my son. Michael had always been a sturdy guy, not a bodybuilder, but fit, athletic. He took care of himself, dressed well, held good posture. The man standing on my doorstep was a shadow of that Michael. Thin, no, emaciated, sunken cheeks, red, hollow eyes, clothes wrinkled, hair dirty. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. My God, Michael! He stepped toward me and hugged me, tightly, desperately, like he hadn't since childhood. I could feel him trembling, feel his tears soaking through my shirt at the shoulder. We stood like that for several minutes. I said nothing, just held him. Then he pulled away, wiped his face with his sleeve. "Sorry," he said. "Sorry, Dad. Don't apologize. Never apologize. Come in." I sat him on the couch, brought water, then whiskey. He drank the water in one gulp, didn't touch the whiskey. "Tell me," I said, "what happened?" He was silent for a long time, staring at the floor, clenching and unclenching his fists. "I found messages," he finally said, "on her phone. She left it in the kitchen while she was in the shower. It buzzed. I thought it was something important, maybe about Ethan." I looked. Messages. Richard Campbell. I knew what was there before he even continued. She's seeing someone, some guy. For several months already, maybe longer. I read their messages. He fell silent, swallowed. There was everything, Dad, photos, plans. She was planning to leave me for him, take Ethan. Take Ethan. Michael, I showed her. When she came out of the shower, I showed her the phone, asked what this was. You know what she said? I shook my head. She said it was my fault, that I'd been a bad husband, that I didn't give her attention, didn't appreciate her, didn't satisfy her needs, that she deserved better, that this man, his name is Richard, that he understands her in a way I never did. Word for word what she'd said to David, what she'd said to Marcus before him, the same script over and over. I asked her about Ethan. She said, his voice broke. She said Ethan would be better off with her and Richard, that Richard is rich, that he'd give him a better life, that I'm a loser like my father. Like my father. She used me. Even in that moment, she used me against him. What happened next? I don't remember exactly. I think I yelled. She yelled. Ethan woke up and cried. She took him and left. To her parents. Said I was dangerous, that she feared for herself and the child. Said she'd call the police if I tried to stop her. Dangerous. She was already building a case against him. Accusations of aggression, of threats to use later in divorce and custody battles. When was this? Yesterday. I slept in my car. Couldn't go back to the apartment. Couldn't. He looked up at me. Dad, I don't know what to do. I don't know how this happened. I thought everything was fine between us. I thought she loved me. I looked at my son, broken, lost, and felt something dark arising inside me. Not joy of being right, not satisfaction that she was finally exposed. Anger, pure, cold anger. She did this to my son. She took 4 years of his life. She cut him off from me. She drained his money, his self-respect, his will. And now she was going to take his child. No, that wasn't going to happen. Michael, I said, listen to me carefully. I know you feel terrible right now. I know you feel betrayed and confused, but you need to pull yourself together, because this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. What do you mean? She's going to fight for Ethan for money, for everything she can get. She's already started these accusations about aggression, about danger. It's part of the plan. She's done this before. He looked at me with confusion. Before? What do you mean, before? I stood up, walked to the cabinet, took out a folder. A thick folder I'd been compiling for months. Frank's reports, photographs, statements from Rachel, Marcus, former colleagues, everything I'd found. I placed the folder in front of him. "This is Christine," I said. "The real Christine, not the one you knew, the one she's always been." For the next 2 hours I told him everything. About David Dawson, about 4 years of isolation, about the affair, about the divorce, about Marcus Chen, about $80,000, about threats, about blackmail, about former colleagues and friends, about the pattern of manipulation, about gaslighting, about Richard Campbell, about $20 million, about the hotel in Dayton, about 4 months at minimum of secret meetings. I showed him photographs, documents, records. He looked, leafed through, read. His face changed from disbelief to shock, from shock to understanding, from understanding to fury. "You knew," he said finally. "You knew all this? How long?" "I suspected from the very beginning. I started gathering information several months ago, after she cut me off completely. Why didn't you tell me?" I looked him in the eyes. "Would you have believed me?" He opened his mouth to say something, closed it, looked away. "No," he said quietly. "No, I probably wouldn't have. She said you were—" He didn't finish. "God, Dad, I'm such an idiot." "You're not an idiot. You're a victim. Like David, like Marcus, like everyone else. She's a professional, Michael. This is how she lives. You couldn't have known." "But you knew. You tried to tell me back then at dinner, and I—" His voice broke. "I chose her. Over you. I said to you, 'That's in the past. It doesn't matter now.'" "It matters. It matters, Dad. I turned my back on you, on the only person who truly loved me. I didn't let you see your grandson. He covered his face with his hands. "How can you even talk to me?" I sat down next to him, put my hand on his shoulder. "Because you're my son. Because I love you. Because it's not your fault." He cried. My adult, 29-year-old son cried like a child, and I sat beside him and waited for him to cry himself out. Then he raised his head, wiped his eyes, and in his gaze there was something new, something solid. "What do I do, Dad? How do I stop her?" I smiled, for the first time in a very long time. That's exactly what I wanted to talk about. Over the next few days, Michael stayed with me. He slept in his old room. I'd kept it almost unchanged since he moved out. Same posters on the walls, same books on the shelves. He said it was strange sleeping in the room where he grew up after everything that had happened. "Like going back in time," he said, "when everything was simple." The first days he mostly slept and ate. I cooked for him the same dishes I'd made when he was a teenager. Spaghetti with meat sauce, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes. Comfort food, as Americans say. He hardly talked about Christine, didn't call her, didn't answer her messages. And she wrote. A lot. First threats, then apologies, then threats again. I saw these messages he showed me. "If you don't come back, I'll file for divorce and take Ethan. You'll never see him again." "Michael, please, let's talk." I overreacted. "We can fix everything." "My lawyer will contact you. You'll regret this." "I love you. I've only ever loved you. Richard was a mistake. Forgive me." Manipulation to the end. She couldn't stop, even when the game was lost. On the fourth day, I laid out my plan to Michael. "Here's what we're going to do," I said. "But first, you need a lawyer, a good family law attorney. I've already found one. Her name is Jennifer Cohen. She specializes in complicated divorces. She's expensive, but she's the best in the state." "Dad, I can't afford. I'll pay. Don't argue. It's an investment in your future and Ethan's future." He wanted to object, but I didn't let him. "Next, we have evidence of her infidelity. Photos, records, witnesses. In Ohio, during a divorce, this matters, especially when determining custody. The judge will look at the parent's moral character. A mother who cheats and plans to take her child to her lover, that's not the best moral character." Michael nodded, listening. "But that's not enough. She's going to claim you were a bad husband, that you controlled her, that you were aggressive. She's already started, remember, when she said she'd call the police?" "Yeah, that's part of her strategy. She wants to create a paper trail, complaints, reports, police records, then use it in court. So, no direct contact with her. Everything through your lawyer. If she provokes you, don't react. If she comes over, you call the police first. Document everything." "Got it. Now the most important thing," I leaned forward. "Ethan, right now he's with her parents. Technically, you have just as much right to the child as she does. You're both parents. There's no court custody order. She cannot forbid you from seeing your son. She said if I came, she'd call the police. Let her call. You're the father. You're not breaking the law by wanting to see your child. But, and this is important, don't do anything that could be interpreted as aggression. Don't yell, don't threaten, don't try to forcibly take Ethan. Be calm, polite, reasonable. Let her look like the hysteric and you like the responsible father." Michael listened attentively. I could see something appearing in his eyes, not just understanding, but determination. "And what about—" He hesitated. "What about revenge? You said she'd pay for what she did." I leaned back in my chair. Now we're getting to the interesting part. Revenge, as I understand it, isn't simply causing pain to someone who caused pain to you. That's too primitive, too petty. True revenge is when a person gets exactly what they deserve, when justice is restored not by law, but in essence. Christine wanted money. She won't get it. Christine wanted a rich man to support her. She'll lose him. Christine wanted to look like the victim and make everyone else the villain. Everyone will know the truth. This was my revenge. Not beatings, not threats, not setting her car on fire, all that is child's play. My revenge was surgical, precise, final. Step 1, Richard Campbell. I called him myself, found his office number, called his secretary, introduced myself as a potential client. They put me through. "Mr. Campbell, my name is Tom Hammond. You don't know me, but you know my daughter-in-law, Christine Hammond, or rather soon-to-be ex-daughter-in-law." Silence on the other end. "Who are you?" "I'm the father of her husband, the husband she's been cheating on with you for the last 4 months, possibly longer." Silence again. Then cautiously, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Mr. Campbell, I have photographs, lots of photographs. You and Christine outside the Marriott Hotel in Dayton. You and Christine entering a room. You and Christine. Well, you understand. Would you like me to email them to you? Or better, to your wife?" A long pause. "What do you want?" "To talk, in person. Tomorrow at noon at the Starbucks on Main Street in Dayton. Come alone. And if I don't come, then the photographs go to your wife and your business partners and the local newspaper. I hear you're planning to run for city council. Interesting to see how that affects your campaign. Silence. I'll be there. Richard Campbell came to the meeting. He looked exactly as he did in the photographs, well-groomed, self-confident in an expensive suit. But when he saw me, fear flickered in his eyes. "Mr. Hammond, Mr. Campbell, sit down." He sat across from me. I placed the folder of photographs on the table without opening it. "I'll be brief," I said. "I don't want your money. I don't want to destroy your family. I don't want to ruin your career, although I could easily." "Then what do you want?" "I want you to understand who you've gotten involved with. Christine Morgan, or Christine Hammond, as she is now, is not the woman you think you know." And I told him everything. David, Marcus, my son, the pattern, the manipulation, the money. Richard listened silently. His face didn't change, but I could see him growing pale. "She told me she was unhappy in her marriage," he said when I finished, "that her husband didn't understand her, that she wanted to start a new life." "Of course she did. That's her standard story. She told Marcus the same thing, and David before him. She told me she loved me. She loves your 20 million, Mr. Campbell, not you." He sat motionless. I could see the information settling in his head, how he was reconsidering everything she'd said, everything she'd done, how the puzzle pieces were falling into place. "What do you want me to do?" he finally asked. "End the relationship with her. Today. Tell her it's over, and this is important. Don't give her another cent. For anything, ever." "That's all?" "Almost. One more thing. When the divorce starts, and it will start soon, you may be called as a witness. I want you to testify. Truthful testimony about your relationship with Christine." He grimaced. "That will destroy my reputation." "Possibly, but it's better than the alternative." "The alternative?" I tapped my finger on the folder of photographs. "The alternative? I send all this to your wife, your partners, and the newspaper right now. Your choice." He chose. Step 2. Jennifer Cohen. The lawyer turned out to be exactly as described to me. A small, energetic woman in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a bulldog's grip. "Mr. Hammond," she said after studying all the materials, "this is impressive. You've done serious work." I wanted to be prepared. "You're more than prepared. With this evidence—" She shook her head. "It's going to be very hard for her to get what she wants." "What does she want?" "Based on her filing full custody of the child, alimony, 50-50 property division, and compensation for emotional damages." "Emotional damages?" I repeated. "She was cheating on my son, and she's demanding compensation for emotional damages?" "She claims your son was controlling and abusive, that she lived in fear, that the affair was her way of coping with trauma." I laughed. Couldn't help it. And a judge would believe that? Without evidence, possibly. Judges often side with the mother, especially when a small child is involved. But with your evidence, she smiled, with your evidence, she doesn't stand a chance. Step 3. Christine's parents. This was the hardest part. I didn't know how they would react. Were they accomplices? Did they know what their daughter was doing? Or had she manipulated them just like everyone else? I drove to Cincinnati, alone, without warning. Dr. William Morgan opened the door and stared at me with incomprehension. "Mr. Hammond, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you and your wife about Christine." He frowned. "Christine said that you're a dangerous man, that you tried to destroy her marriage." "Christine says a lot of things. Not all of it is true. May I come in?" He hesitated. I could see it. The hesitation between wanting to slam the door and wanting to know what was going on. Curiosity won. 5 minutes? I spent 2 hours in their house. I told them everything, as I'd told Michael, as I'd told Richard. I showed them documents, photographs, witness statements. Patricia Morgan cried, quietly, silently. Her husband sat motionless like a statue. "We didn't know," he said when I finished. "I swear, we didn't know." "Did you know she was married before?" "Yes, she said her husband was abusive, that she escaped from him." "David Dawson abusive? I spoke with him. He still sees a therapist after what she did to him." William covered his face with his hands. "She's our daughter, our only child. We believed her. We always believed her." "I understand. I believed my son, too, and he believed her." A long silence. "What do you want from us?" Patricia asked. For the first time she spoke. "Ethan, my grandson, he's with you now. I want Michael to be able to see him without threats, without hysterics, without police." "Of course," she said. "Of course he can. Michael is a good father. We've seen that. Ethan loves him. And one more thing. When the case goes to court, and it will, you may be called as witnesses. I want you to tell the truth. Don't protect her. Don't lie for her. Just the truth." William looked at his wife. She nodded. "We'll tell the truth," he said. Michael and Christine's divorce took 8 months. She fought to the end, hired lawyers, filed counterclaims, made scenes in court, accused Michael of everything she could think of: abuse, control, financial misconduct, child abduction, but she had no evidence. And we did. Jennifer Cohen was magnificent. She methodically, piece by piece, dismantled every one of Christine's accusations. She presented the hotel photographs, called Richard Campbell as a witness. He confirmed the affair, called Rachel Dawson. She told about the first marriage, called Marcus Chin. He told about his experience. The judge, an elderly woman with gray hair and perceptive eyes, listened attentively. I watched her expression change as the picture emerged, how she looked at Christine first neutrally, then with growing disgust. Christine tried to play the victim, cried on the stand, spoke about her suffering, her fear, her love for her son, but the tears looked fake and the words rehearsed. Her own parents testified against her. That was a moment I'll never forget. Patricia Morgan, sitting on the witness stand, said, "I love my daughter, but I cannot lie for her. She's not well. She needs help, not money, not power help." Christine looked at her mother with such an expression that it frightened me. Pure hatred, just for a split second, but I saw it. The court's decision was handed down in January 2025. Michael received primary custody of Ethan. Christine got visitation rights every other weekend, supervised. Property division was minimal. They'd only been married 4 years. There was hardly any joint property. The apartment stayed with Michael. Her car, her Lexus, bought with my money, stayed with her. She got no alimony, no compensation for emotional damages. When the judge read the verdict, I watched Christine. Her face was motionless, but I could see she understood. For the first time in her life, her scheme hadn't worked. After the hearing, she approached me. Security tensed up, but she stopped a few steps away. "Are you satisfied, Mr. Hammond?" Her voice was calm, too calm. "I wanted justice. I got it." "Justice?" She smirked. "You think this is justice? You took my son from me." "You took my son from me. I just took him back." She looked at me for a long time. In her eyes there was nothing, no anger, no pain, no regret, emptiness. "This isn't over," she said, and left. Those were the last words I ever heard from her. A year has passed since then. Michael moved back to Columbus, rented an apartment not far from my house. Ethan is almost 4, goes to daycare, and stays at Grandpa's every weekend. We go to the park, play ball. I read him books before bed, everything I dreamed of. Michael, he's recovering, slowly but surely. He sees a therapist, I insisted. He says it helps. Says he's starting to understand how she controlled him, how she manipulated him, how she made him believe black was white. Sometimes he cries, sometimes he gets angry, sometimes he just sits in silence for hours. But with each month, those moments become fewer. He's starting to laugh again, to joke, to be the Michael I remembered. We talk about Linda. We watch her video messages together, the ones she recorded for him up to age 25. He missed several, the ones from during his marriage to Christine. Now we're catching up. "Mom would be happy," he said recently, "that you didn't give up, that you got me out. I did what she would have done in my place." Christine, I don't know what's happened to her. I heard she moved to California. Richard Campbell broke up with her right after our conversation. His wife never found out about the affair. She apparently hasn't found any new rich men yet. Sometimes I think about her, about what makes a person become like that. What emptiness inside, what pain, what fear that you need to fill it with other people's lives, other people's money, other people's love. Then I remember what she did to my son, to Ethan, to David, to Marcus, to everyone else, and I stopped thinking about her at all. It's October now, Sunday. I'm sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching Ethan kick a ball around the yard. Michael sits beside me, checking something on his phone. "Dad," he says suddenly, "thank you." "For what?" "For everything. For not giving up on me. For fighting. For being there when I wasn't there myself." I'm silent, watching my grandson, who's laughing after tripping over his own feet. "You're my son," I finally say. "It's my job." He puts his hand on my shoulder. We sit there in silence, watching Ethan play. Linda would be pleased.